This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to episode number 29 of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. I am your host, Vito Jerome Chirco. What a morning it's been. Oh my gosh, huh, Doc? Been something else here, a lot on my plate. Didn't expect it to be this way. Sorry for, making you wait. Not everybody else, because this is still Wednesday for the releasing of the podcast. So I'm glad that we're getting this in, though, Doc, to say the least.
Man, Vito, it's one of those days, and I think we all have them, where things just get a little bit twisted. We were recording this podcast. I know you had some things come up with other projects that you're working on. Hey, man, you're a guy that's super busy. I understand it completely, and I'm going through the same kind of day as well. Got the taxes coming up this week on Thursday, so me and the wife are trying to get all our paperwork together. So as you were working, trying to get everything in order, get all the many interviews lined up that you got going on, I know you're a man about town. My wife is messaging me, and she's like, wait a minute. She now went through the bank account for the entire year 2015, and she's starting to look at some of my spending habits.
Oops, she's not liking what she sees, huh?
So when you see me, you were like, who you texting? My wife was going through and was like, you spent this on this, and you spent this on that, and, I'm not the kind of guy that itemizes each and everything that I spend, and I might have underreported what I spent on certain items when she asked, so I'm kind of in the doghouse probably right now. But I just want to record this podcast, have fun, talk a little bit of sports. But you and I are having the same kind of day, my friend.
Yes, in the doghouse.
Oh, no!
Yeah, that's how we feel. In the doghouse for different reasons, right? But we're cleaning up our acts and doing better here. Having fun now with edition number 29 of the Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company podcast.
What do we got upcoming on this podcast? What are we expecting? I'm looking forward to it as much as probably you are. What are we going to hit on?
We have Perry Farrell from the Detroit Free Press, sports writer for about over 25 years, started in 1988. You do the math there. He's covered everything, Doc, and we talk about the Pistons, the Bad Boy Pistons. He wrote a book about those guys and the 04 champs, those players. He got to know those players. He loves Ricky Mahorn. He brought up Rick Mahorn. He's been friends with him for a while, and we talked about the nastiest bad boy from the Bad Boy Pistons, back-to-back champions, and a lot of Pistons, and then not a lot of, but some UDM men's basketball talk too, talking about the current state of that team. And their best player right now, Paris Bass. Does he have NBA talent? And a little bit of baseball mixed in. This is Tigers Talk with Chirco and Co. Talked about Sparky Anderson, his days covering the team when they had Sparky as the skipper, Alan Trammell, Lou Whitaker as a double play tandem, the longest tenured in Major League Baseball history they became as well. So fun stuff with Perry coming up here as part of a segment. And then also talking about, projections, once again, all about that going into spring training, rapidly approaching a spring training. And before we get into spring training, and the Tigers do, and we start really talking about, spring training news and notes, let's talk about some more projections. And Doc, USA Today came out with their article on projections for the Major League Baseball season for all the teams, all divisions, and maybe some surprising, some not as surprising, Doc. And I don't know what stood out to you if you looked at this in depth, but I have recently, and today I have it up with me on my laptop, my beautiful Toshiba laptop from work that I can utilize and do every single podcast. And it has right now for the Central, the Tigers projected to finish fourth, 82-80 for the Tigers record. 2 games above 500, Doc. And hey, Fangraphs had them, I believe, at the same thing. This might be based off of Fangraphs projections, by the way. But I don't think they had the White Sox first. The White Sox finishing first here with 90 wins. And now they added the Todd Frazier, to play third base. A great addition there. And they've got the starting pitching. They have Carlos Rodon now for a full season. Jose Quintana, Chris Sale at the top of the rotation. He's a Cy Young caliber arm every single season. I like their 1 through 3 with that being said. And their lineup obviously is deeper now with the addition of Todd Frazier. Still have Jose Abreu at first base. Maybe the next coming of Miguel Cabrera. Very good average plus power guy like Miguel. So, White Sox number 1. Royals, who won the World Series, back-to-back AL pennant, or AL champions, let's say, 84-78 in second. Indians 83-79. Fourth, the Tigers, as I said, 82 and 80. In fifth place, everybody's around 80 wins. Minnesota Twins finishing in last, but with 80 wins, 80 and 82. So the flip, or the opposite of what the Tigers are expected from USA Today at 82 and 80 for the Tigers. Once again, 80 and 82 in fifth place for the Twins.
Now, the author made a key note in stating that when he made the projections that he likes the White Sox, but he does state that the AL Central is so deep this year, it has gotten better, that really any of the teams could step up and actually make a run to win the AL Central title. Just looking at it as a whole, do you think, because in the past we've all talked about it, the AL Central is a tougher division, that the AL Central is going to be tight, and then in the end you notice that it's not as competitive with the bottom teams as you would expect. This year, do you think the AL Central is going to be tougher to actually take down than in years past?
Good question. Let me answer it now for you. The Royals might take a step back, but they'll still be there competitive, probably around 83 to 85 wins. As I said, 84 wins according to USA Today for their projections for the 2016 Major League Baseball season. Indians, I think, will be better than 83 and 79, and the White Sox should be better than last year, when they finished barely ahead of the Tigers for fourth place in the AL Central. So the Tigers should be better, too. Twins should be right around where they were last year, maybe a bit better, but about a 500 ball club. So it should be highly, mightily, or ultra competitive in the AL Central this year, where everybody could finish with 80 wins, or it could be the case where everybody beats up on each other so often, Doc, so frequently, Doc, that a team might finish with 75 to 78 wins only, such as the Twinkies, or who knows, maybe the Royals taking that big of a step back. But I find this division to be ultra competitive going into 2016 and more competitive than it was last year with the Tigers having a down season.
Yeah, and just in looking at the AL East and the AL West, I can almost make an argument that the Central is the worst of the three divisions
and you said
in the
that
American
before,
League.
And I told you no way, though.
Right, because you look at the Red Sox, Blue Jays, Rays topping, going to be the class of the AL East. You got the Astros, Rangers, Angels in the AL West. It might take a lot for the teams in the AL Central to actually, get up there and be competitive. Should whichever team make the postseason? It's going to be tough. I think that the AL Central has gotten better across the board. The teams have made improvements, but I just don't think competitively across the AL that the Central is as good. So the Tigers do have a legitimate chance, and I'm really surprised. Why do you think that nationally the writers and the people who are making these early projections are projecting the Tigers to finish fourth? They really aren't projecting them to get to the top. Why do you think that is?
Because they finished so poorly last year, 74 and 87, I believe it was. They, remember, did not play one of their games. That's why they finished that way. So I think because they finished so poorly last year and because they had to make up so much ground going into this year now, Doc, I think because of that, they're projected to finish only a few games above 500. And right now, they have to prove themselves. So right now, a lot of doubters out there. This is another doubtful projection for the Tigers, or gloomy, right, projection for the Tigers. At 82 and 80. 82 and 80 by Fangraphs, I believe, as well. Baseball Prospectus, I believe, has them at 83 and 79. They're about that good of a team. I mean, 82, 83, maybe 84 wins. They got to make another addition probably, Doc.
$200 million for 83 wins?
Well, compared to last year, that's really what $200 million maybe gets you. I'll say this. It shouldn't, right? I agree with where you're coming. You're saying, oh, my God, Vito, what are you speaking of here? You're being blasphemous, right? Well, you know what?
No! $200 million for 83 wins.
When you have to make up that much ground, though, I think paying what they did, adding onto the payroll will only get you a certain amount of wins, or of an increase in the win column than you had the previous year. I think that's why this is such a low projection, and other projections have been so mediocre as well for the Tigers.
No, Vito, I think that if you're going to make the moves that they made this year, you got to remember the Tigers now are only the second Major League Baseball franchise to ever sign two people in the same offseason to 9-figure deals. You got to think about that. They signed two players for over $100 million. And I understand that the expectations maybe across the United States in terms of the writers and the national perception is lower. But I really believe that the organization believes that this is going to be a 90 to 95 win team that's going to compete in the Central. If they finish with less than, I believe, 80, I got them right now, before seeing anything in spring training, I'm looking at 85 and 77. But if they finish below 90 wins, you got a clean house because you can't spend that much money. There has to be some elevated expectations when you're shelling out that kind of money. You finish with 83 to 85 wins. Ausmus better be gone.
Oh, he is gone, yeah.
You might have to look at Avila because...
No way. First year on the job. First full offseason. He's not gone.
Jordan Zimmerman.
He's got a big contract. He's got a big contract, Avila, though, for 5 years, right? From Mr. I. He's not going anywhere, but I'll agree with you with this one. Ausmus is gone, and I think he might be gone. Like I said, if they really underachieve in the first half of the year, he might be gone by the All-Star break. And Dave D didn't want to remove him from his poll, from his role as manager. Mr. I wanted him gone. Remember, multiple times it seems like. And that's why Dave D ended up being ousted, because he wouldn't get rid of Brad Ausmus, who was his man there in Detroit. So Dave D now with another ball club, but Avila will not be with another ball club in 2017. He'll still be in his role as a GM of the Detroit Tigers, and rightfully so. But I would say they've got to make the playoffs for Ausmus to save his job. They've got to finish, like you said, above 85 wins. And, to make the playoffs, you got to win about 88 games at least, let's say, maybe 87. So you got to win 87 to 89 to even get into the playoffs, to punch your ticket in as a wild card team. So they want to make it as a wild card team out of the American League. They got to finish with more than 85 wins. And the thing is, if they do, I think Ausmus saves his job if they make the playoffs, even as just a wild card doc. Because it's a highly competitive division, they might not win it. Similar to that, because there's a lot of good teams outside of the Tigers, unlike in recent memory. And even unlike last year, when it really was still just the Royals. They dominated that division from day one. They had really no competition besides for the Tigers when opening day hit and they first started the season and came out of the gate, the Tigers did, at 11-2. Great start and faltered after that, way under 500. Besides for that, the Royals had no competition for the AL Central Division crown. This year they will, if they want to win again and repeat for a third time. That'd be 3 times, or 2, actually winning it in a row, because remember, in 2014, when they made the run to the World Series, they were a wild card team because the Tigers, they barely, held on for the division crown.
Now, the good thing is, when the national writers and the writers start projecting, hey, some of the Tigers have started to comment going, hey now, Justin Verlander put out a tweet on his page, and he's been active a little bit more on social media. He was out and about supporting Andre Drummond at the NBA All-Star competition. He wrote, that's why we play the games, and he's like, you know what, I think this can be used. I like it that the perception of the Tigers is that they're going to be an underachieving team. I think that can serve just a little bit of an us versus the world mentality. And the Tigers definitely need that little bit of extra motivation, because what is it going to take for these guys to get over that hump? I mean, we've been waiting now. Now you're a young cat, but we've been waiting since 1984 for a chance to get back to the World Series and for a chance to win the World Series. It's going to be, Vito, 10 years since 2006 when they made that first run. And I know, relatively speaking, this last decade of baseball has been pretty good, but we've been waiting now well over 30 years to get back to that promised land, and I don't know how much more patience this fan base is going to exhibit when you're up in the payroll, when the ticket prices are getting higher, when the price of beer now is over $10 at Comerica Park. You got to pay it off. I mean, don't you feel like, what's your patience level now with this organization? Are you like starving for a championship? I feel like I'm at the point now where I'm watching the games, I'm enjoying it, but my focus is World Series or I'm going to be upset. We've waited long enough.
Patience is a virtue. Remember that to start off here.
I know,
okay?
and I know
it's hard to have it though after a while, after 30 plus years of not having a championship now. But yeah, I'm malnourished when it comes to starving for titles. I haven't had one, I haven't eaten one as a Tigers fan, and I would love that as I feel like I'm one of the biggest Tigers fans in this state, at least, and I haven't seen that. So, yeah, I want to see more winning baseball and winning results in the World Series. And even for me, I know it's not really just good enough for the Tigers only to have, if they made it to the Fall Classic, to only get 2 wins in the World Series. But they haven't even done that, gotten 2 wins in the World Series. In 2006, only 1 win. In 2012, they got swept by the Giants.
Now I want to ask you something. When you're watching baseball, not when you're covering them, because I know you're a professional, you're a journalist.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
And you maintain some objectivity when you do cover them. But I'm saying as a fan, when you're sitting at home privately and the Tigers have a great success or they have a comeback, are you a fist bump guy? Are you hugging your friends, cheering? Are you air guitaring? What do you?
I love the air guitar, you know that.
How do you celebrate big wins, and how do you celebrate when some great stuff happens for the Tigers? Like, let's say there's a grand slam and it's a game-winning situation or a walk-off. Are you like, kind of subdued and being like, yeah, this is cool? Or are you like high-fiving, man about town, hugging it up with all the boys? How do you celebrate good time? How do you celebrate good times with the Tigers?
I'm not totally calm, so I'm not totally subdued then, but maybe I'm not ripping my cape off either, and going wild. But I will say this, I have a phrase that's been mine for a while that my friends now know me for. When a ball's going out of the ballpark, when I see it nearing the fences and see it going over the top of the wall, I say out loud, very loud, get out of here, get out of here. I'll start yelling like this. I get really excited for a big home run, something big like that. And when I'm with my dad watching Tigers games, we'll give each other high fives. Maybe not a hug or a bro hug, but we high five each other. So, slapping high fives all around. Everybody gets a high five, unless you're Dominic Chirco, my brother, who loves the White Sox. And we kind of we taunt him and rub it in to him. Because I love hearing how he reacts because he gets livid. That's a kid that gets really emotional. You got to watch out with him. But for me, I don't get emotional like that.
See, now I'm a little bit more like a high five kind of guy, cheering, fist pumping, clench my fist, and celebrate. But I was just thinking, as you were talking about celebrating and maintaining professionalism, just the thought in my mind was, what if there were calls that were made by the radio guys and there was no FCC and there was no regulation?
They just let it drop,
drop
like the F-bombs.
They're like this. JD Martinez up to plate, 3-2 count. Very, very important situation. 2 runners on, down 2-1 in the 9th inning. Oh, crack of the bat. Kiss my ass, mofo!
They're like, get the F out of here,
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
dropping F-bombs left and right. Guys, super energetic guys like Gus Johnson, he'd be dropping F-bombs all over the place probably.
See, exactly. That's why I love doing this podcast. We can just say whatever. Get that shit out of here!
A lot of fans would like that. I have buddies that would love that. They would get a kick out of it, and they would watch more baseball, more professional sports if that was the case for the broadcasters. But obviously, it's not with the, as you said, the FCC
because the kids are watching.
regulations.
So this, did you know, Vito? Sometimes your podcast is rated M for mature.
I haven't, I realized it a few times, but I was trying to figure out why it was for not the one with the buddy I had on from Oregon, John Weinsberg. When he was on, he was a little bit dirty, okay, a little bit risque. I realized it for that, and then I thought, like, the other two that have been rated as explicit on iTunes, I thought, what the heck did I do? I'm not a swear. What did I do? Then I thought, well, if you say a few words that are at least borderline it, you got to be safe, play it cautious, and I know you were playing it cautiously, too. So I thought it was iTunes that made it the explicit. I thought it was on them. I didn't know it was you too, Doc, but I know you wanted to play it safe.
Well, now you know. This edition. What number
it's going to be explicit, by the way. We know that. Episode number 29. You got it wrong
29
last week.
with Vito Chirco.
Vito Chirco. Now, Vito Jerome, I know you posted that too on Podomatic. St. Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company with Vito Jerome.
Chirco.
You did it for the last 2 episodes. It's Vito Chirco. But I know you get it mixed up because of my Twitter handle being @Vito Jerome. And it's kind of like a play on words. Or I love playing that up, that my middle name is Jerome because it's not really a short Caucasian male's middle name or first name, Jerome, You get my drift. So I've always liked playing that up for the flair of it, for the hijinks and hilarity, because my friends just love it that my middle name is that, and they get a kick out of it because I'm a small guy. I'm below 5 feet in height, and I got that middle name, which is like a strong, powerful man, like a big guy you would think would have that name. And even my dad, and we're all Italian, his name is Jerome. He goes by Jerry, though. Never goes by Jerome, really, unless maybe in the professional setting. And I think in Italian it's Geronimo, something like that, which sounds really good, fancy. And he goes by Jerome, and that's my middle name. Nothing more than that.
Let me apologize. I'm really sorry. It's like 29 episodes in, and we've known you for a long time.
Almost episode number 30. You still don't know that my last name is Chirco, Doc.
It just because the way it just sounds, it sounds so much easier to say Vito Jerome.
No, I got you.
So
and I go by that. I
apologize. I don't want to keep doing that. So I probably won't make that mistake again on our show description. So
not on this one. Now we'll see in the future what happens if you forget. But I don't mind it, Doc. Remember that too. Even though you're the podfather and you have the final say. I mean, I gotta bow down to you anyways and still admit that it's good. But I realistically, genuinely think it's all right. The Vito Jerome, I can go by that. And with that being said, let's shut down that convo and move back into the projection machine from USA Today Sports, which came out recently. I believe it came out yesterday. Yep. Monday, the Monday after V's Day. My day, which was Valentine's Day. I didn't do anything special for Valentine's Day, but I still call it V's Day. A fun day for myself, just relaxing around the house. It was for me on Sunday. I know you did some stuff with the wife, Doc, and the day after this came out, this projection article from USA Today in AL East. Now, you were talking about the American League East, the American League West being better, more competitive than the American League Central. You said the American League Central is the weakest. Well, I'll argue that the American League East really isn't. Now, the American League West, where the Seattle Mariners should be a much better team this year. They finished under 500 last year, projected only to finish 77 and 85 though this year. I believe Fangraphs had them above 500 at 85 and 77. So the opposite of that record projected by USA Today Sports. So I can see them improving. The LA Angels of Anaheim still have Albert Pujols, Mike Trout. They're going to be at least competitive, finish with 83 to 85 wins. Texas around that, and they're projected to finish by USA Today with 85. Texas is, Angels 83. And in first place, the Houston Astros, who played in, remember, that one-game playoff against the Yankees. The Astros won and then made it into, remember, the first round of the playoffs. The Astros should be good again. Good young pitching. Dallas Keuchel, Cy Young Award winner, a guy like that at the top of your rotation. So I like what they have going for them. They can hit. You have Correa, you have George Springer, you have Jose Altuve, guys that can hit in that lineup too. So Texas can hit though too. And now can pitch. They have Cole Hamels for a full season. Yu Darvish coming back in like May. And then the Angels, they've got to pitch a little bit better because they can hit, especially if Pujols can stay healthy. So 1 through 3, and then Seattle at number 4. If they're going to finish number 4, That's a very good fourth-place team in the American League West. So I would say all 4 teams there in the American League West can finish above 500 and finish truly in second or first place. And that's why I think the American League West is better than the American League Central. But the American League East is maybe a hair behind the Central, even though the Bo Sox are improved after the additions of David Price and Craig Kimbrell. Doc, with all that being said, the Central still the worst division in your estimation after, the great insight I just provided to you, as I know you're listening intently and deeply, very deeply to my analysis here.
No, I still agree. I just think that...
You still agree with what?
I still agree with my premise that the Central is the worst. Now, it's not saying that they're that far off from the other 2 divisions. I'm just saying that the talent across the board, you look at Toronto's going to be a much stronger team. New York is retooling. You look at Boston. I really like what Boston did in the offseason. And now all you got to do for Dave Dombrowski, now he has that plush checkbook. Could you imagine Dave Dombrowski's jobs that he's had? He's had the opportunity to have some really good jobs, but his last 2, working with Mike Ilitch and now going over there to Fenway, are you kidding me right now, to work with the Henry family? He's going to have the ability to just go out there if he needs a piece, and he's going to really not really be hamstrung by a certain amount of a checkbook. Now, with that, for Boston's going to come some great expectations. So the pressure, I think, will be a little bit greater than he had in Detroit, because Boston, they're pretty rabid with the Patriots and with the Red Sox. If you don't deliver in Boston, those fans over there are going to get really upset. And I do believe, though, he's going to continue to display the same strategy, trade off a lot of young talent in the minors to bring established stars. And he's going to open that checkbook. So I like what Boston and Toronto are doing, and it's going to be a fun thing to look at the AL Central and the AL East and see what they're doing, because, the Tigers... Nowadays, it seems like it's going to be a little bit tougher for that second team from the AL Central to get into the postseason. I really believe it's going to be a chance to probably have 2 teams from either the AL East or the West get in there, and really, just the winner of the AL Central is going to get to the postseason, in my opinion, this year.
And just get in. Only one team, and then maybe get knocked out in the first round, it sounds like, according to what you think about the strength of the AL West and the AL East, respectively. You like the Bo Sox, it sounds like, and the Jays Mashers, big Mashers. Edwin Encarnacion, Jose Bautista, Josh Donaldson, the MVP from last year, Troy Tulowitzki at shortstop, all those 4 guys in that one lineup.
I'm looking forward
That's
to Toronto.
extremely good.
I'm looking forward, definitely, to Toronto coming to town, because could you imagine Detroit, Toronto? Oh, my God. Especially when Detroit travels there, I believe their roof is collapsible or retractable, isn't it?
Yep, in Toronto, the Rogers Center, yep.
So then you could see some fireworks there. Oh, my goodness. Could you imagine, if Shane Green ends up being the 5th starter, or the matchup when Pelfrey goes up against Toronto? Do you think, honestly, that Mike Pelfrey can match up against Toronto? Give me a break.
And not at the Rogers Center
Woo-hoo.
at all. And Comerica, spacious, maybe. But yeah, that'd be a uphill battle, to say the least, against the Jays there. But they got a pitch. No more David Price. R.A. Dickey is one of your aces? Come on. Knuckleballer, home run.
If you can get an R.A. Dickey versus Mike Pelfrey, you could be looking
bombs
at
away
15-12 kind of game.
Yeah,
Woo-hoo.
Very high scoring indeed. And for me, I like the Boston Red Sox, but Sandoval, guys like that have to improve though offensively too. Pedroia has to be a little bit better, more healthy. Big Papi, he's getting older and older. Can he keep it up? His great home run ways and run producing ways. A lot of question marks still.
We keep asking, but he keeps swinging. And despite what he does throughout the league, when he faces the Tigers pitching, just seems like his eyes light up. His bat's extra. His bat speed seems to increase a mile or two, and he has the ability to have success against the Tigers pitching. It's unbelievable the number of home runs that he's hit off the Tigers pitching. He feasts off of them. It's unbelievable.
And then the Yankees. You brought up all these other teams outside of the Yankees who still upgraded their bullpen. They have Andrew Miller and Aroldis Chapman now at the back end of games. He's their closer, fireballer, throws 100-plus miles per hour consistently.
And you have Teixeira now, who's in a contract year, so you know what that means. He's going to try his absolute best to play at least 120 games and try to make another contract. I mean, you can never discount the Yankees. They're a team that, from time to time has been dipping off towards the latter half of seasons, and they haven't advanced too far in the postseason. But
because they haven't been able to pitch and
stay healthy,
and still the healthiness of that roster and the aging vets coupled with that. I don't know if I like their roster too much outside of their bullpen, their deep bullpen, and the top of the rotation in Masahiro Tanaka, and then Michael Pineda, who never seems to stay healthy himself, and he's a younger guy. If he stays healthy, though, Sabathia's improved. They have a solid 1 through 3, but Sabathia being anything at this point, I don't think it'll be the case where he improves. I think he's washed up, Doc, big time, and Teixeira has to stay healthy. A-Rod, can he really stay healthy? His body's been breaking down for a while. He stayed relatively healthy last year, was great, out of nowhere. They wanted to get rid of him at the beginning of the year and in spring training. didn't get rid of him. They stuck it out with him at DH. It was good enough, more than good enough. Very good DH there. But now these guys that really need some days off and have to play DH, and you got, A-Rod, a guy like that, clogging it up because he has to take all those starts there because Teixeira could see some time there. Also, Brian McCann, their catcher, they wanted to be the captain of that team, replacing Jeter. Is he really that? I don't know about that. So Jacoby Ellsbury, him staying healthy. Can he stay healthy? Brett Gardner gets hurt out there in the outfield too. So 2 outfielders that get hurt all the time. Carlos Beltran's a year older. Lots of aging vets throughout that lineup, and that's what concerns me about the quality of their team. That's why I think they might even be less off than last year, even though they added Chapman. They might only be an 83, 84 win team. And if they reach their highest level of performance as a whole, I would say they're about an 87 win team, which might be good for an American League wildcard spot, which they garnered last year, falling in the divisional race in the American League East to the Toronto Blue Jays, who I could see falling back a little bit with the Red Sox rising, as you are projecting. And then how about the Rays? Let's give some love to them. They can pitch, Doc. Remember that. Matt Moore, Chris Archer was great last year. Drew Smyly being healthy now, perhaps for a full season there. The former Tigers pitcher who the Rays got in the David Price deal. Those 3. And some names I'm forgetting right now. I mean, some young arms, 1 through 5, they can put up some great numbers. And if they hit just a little bit, they can be very good there in Tampa Bay as well. And that's why that could be a deep division. I agree. I know where you were going with saying that it is going to be a deep one. I just think the Central is a hair above the American League East, while the American League West is the top division. So for me, the standings for ranking the divisions, in terms of strength, 1 through 5, first place, it's the American League West. Second place, American League Central. Third place, the American League East, which hasn't been the weakest division many times since I've been alive. So for the last 20 years, let's say. And right now, if I had to pick a team to win that American League East, it would be hard for me to pick the Red Sox making that big of an improvement to get into first place after how bad they were last year. Toronto I kind of like still, even though they're full of hitters and not full of a lot of pitching. Tampa Bay, if they hit, they could be something. And Yankees, if they can stay healthy. So very hard division to pick, but I'm going to just say this. I'm not going to pick a team maybe right now, but I'm going to say the Red Sox don't finish in first place. I'll say that much. And then in the American League West, I see the Astros winning again. They might win this division for a long, long time going forward. And the Rangers there are a hair behind. While I see the Halos dropping a bit and the Mariners at least improving a bit in the American League West. In the first year of Scott Service being their manager, a former front office guy for the Anaheim Angels, when Jerry Dipoto was there, the current GM of the Seattle Mariners. And I wanted to move on to a little bit of some Tigers news and notes, Doc, if you allow me to here. You're the producer. I hope you allow me to, Podfather. And you brought it up before the show. Justin Verlander being nodded. Verlander receiving the nod as the opening day starter for the Tigers in 2016 here. And a rotation that's not as strong, not as deep as it used to be, 1 through 5, because you don't have David Price there anymore, traded last year at the deadline. Scherzer left in the offseason via free agency to the Nationals. Doug Fister's gone. Porcello's gone. Smiley's gone. It's really just Justin Verlander, and then you got Jordan Zimmerman now, who they added to be the number 2, the clear-cut number 2. But there is no other clear-cut number 1 besides for JV, and that's why he's the opening day starter. I feel there was no debate regarding it, Doc.
Yeah, he's making a ton of money. He's got the respect of his now manager. I think that it's a show of respect from Brad Ausmus to his guy. And one thing you could argue with Brad Ausmus is that he is a loyal guy and that he is a player's manager. And so I think it's a relatively easy decision for him to say, you know what, Justin Verlander's been here the longest. He is the guy. But to make the announcement before pitchers and catchers report is a little bit interesting in that you don't want to see him throw a couple games in spring training just to make sure he doesn't get shelled, just to make sure he's still got 93, 94 mile an hour fastball. I agree with the notion that you're probably already going to have in mind to put Justin Verlander on the mound opening day, but I wouldn't have announced it until maybe at least a couple appearances in spring training. Let's see what he's got. I would say, why jump the why jump the gun?
But you want to see him earn it kind of almost. But he was going to earn it no matter. He could have stunk it up, Doc. Come on, we know this. He could have had a 24.5 ERA in spring training. And realistically, he probably still would have gained
you could argue that it sends the message that, okay, that we already have the players ranked before we see performance? I don't agree with that.
I think the teammates even know that. I think Zimmerman even knows he's not going to be the ace.
But
even though he signed on the dotted line for that big of a contract, I don't think he thinks he was going to be the ace.
Right, not going into the season, but let's just say now in spring training, Justin Verlander struggles. The sinker ball is not working, his command is off, and all of a sudden Jordan Zimmerman has a great month of March, and his spring training is unbelievable. You don't say then, you know what? Jordan Zimmerman's my number 1. going into the season. Let's just say, for example, he goes out there, his ERA is sub-1, and he's just, getting outs easily, and he's having he has the ability to get guys out relatively quickly. His pitch count's relatively good, and Justin Verlander struggles. All of a sudden, Justin Verlander's number one guy.
Are you making the case that Zimmerman should have, if he would have put up those numbers in spring training, coming up here in spring training, that he would have been the ace? You would have given him the nod, and the Tigers would have given him the nod to be the ace of the pitching staff, the opening day starter. I'm
of the opinion performance means a lot to me, and you don't want the players to believe that, okay, this is my position already established. Justin Verlander was an ace. Justin Verlander was successful. But this ain't the old Justin Verlander. This is a guy that's coming off of injuries. This is a guy that hasn't been as consistent. Now, he did have a great second half of the year. There are a lot more positive vibes shooting out the way towards Justin Verlander that he's going to be successful. But I'm not so certain that he's the ace of the staff right away, that he deserves the nod right away. It's not clear-cut. It's not a young 25-year-old Justin Verlander who is a flamethrower. This is a guy now in his mid-30s. And he's now featuring stuff that's not the same. So why do you give him the nod and saying, this is my opening day starter? That's kind of reserved for a clear-cut number one. Now, I understand why he's doing it. I think that he's trying to establish who's going to be the ace. But I would just say, give it 2 weeks. And if it's relatively close between Verlander and Zimmerman, you give it to the guy. You give it to Verlander. But if Zimmerman significantly outdoes Justin Verlander in spring training, that's a big plus, but I would have had Zimmerman then start at game one.
Can't believe you're making the case for him to be the opening day starter if he had or has a great spring training performance and racks up more than a few quality starts. The reason why I can't believe it is because if that's the case, if he does that, goes out there, performs up to par, he's a great number two. He's guaranteed. That's good for him because, hey, then we know he's going to be a great number two.
But yeah,
and he secured that role. That's what I'm thinking. I just think Verlander was the number one no matter what. Even if he stunk it up a ton, maybe not a 24-plus ERA like you said.
And also, too, in terms of gamesmanship and maneuverability, baseball is a lot like chess. Justin Verlander going up against the number ones of other squads might not be as favorable as Jordan Zimmerman going up against other teams' number ones. Justin Verlander is considered an ace, maybe a great number two. So maybe you just mix it up a little bit and you put Justin Verlander lower in the rotation in order to get that better matchup pitching-wise. Because remember, if Justin Verlander's the ace, he's going to be going up against the number ones for the most part across Major League Baseball in the American League. So,
he has to.
Yeah. So
that's the state of the Tigers' rotation. Tigers are forced here. Their hand is forced to start Verlander opening day. He's the franchise icon for this pitching staff since now 2006. He's been the mainstay at the top of the rotation. They couldn't afford to not place him as the number one to start. They couldn't afford to not start him opening day. If it was Zimmerman going as the opening day starter, Verlander would have probably been all flustered, would have had a big beef about it, and would have talked to the front office, Alavila, and to manager Brad Ausmus.
Might have played a cut right, which I'm about winning, baby. So if Justin Verlander is a true ace and Jordan Zimmerman's relatively close, you could also make the argument, hey, just put Justin Verlander up against the number twos. You maybe have a stronger chance of getting, more wins every start that he makes.
If Zimmerman's that good of a number one, he would have to show that he was terrific. He would have to almost pitch no hitters out there in spring training every single start for him to be the number one, in my opinion.
He has pitched no hitters.
He would have to be that good for him to be the number one to surpass Verlander as a number one.
It's probably true, but
it'll take a lot. Let's just say that it'll take a lot this season too.
It's an arguable. I believe it's an arguable point. I just don't think that Justin Verlander is the clear-cut number one.
I think he is by default. And now Zimmerman brings a little bit of competition. Zimmerman now is that guy that can force JV maybe to be slotted down, or in terms of valuableness, the ability for JV to be the most valuable and impactful rotation arm. Zimmerman is that competition out to that. But to be in the number one, it's still JV's race to win. It's not going to be taken away from JV unless JV got hurt. I think he would have to take that. Or JV struggles to the point where he's as bad as a fifth starter, or worse than that. If he did that, then Zimmerman would have to rise up, and the hand of the Tigers of Ausmus would be forced to start Zimmerman, against those bigger pitchers, those ace caliber arms. Because right now he's pegged to be the number two and much more suited for that role to start against number twos than number ones. Because if you have him starting against number ones, even though you slot JV down to number two, that number two spot, well, he's starting then Zimmerman against better pitchers than him. So even though JV's starting against lesser pitchers than him, Zimmerman starting against better pitchers than him is a wash, I think, right? Is what I'm trying to say. That's where your argument, I think, isn't valid. It's where it would be defeated.
Well, if Jordan Zimmerman was pitching well enough to get the ace spot, then you would think that he'd be a little bit competitive when he faces those aces. Remember, he's younger, fastball maybe snaps a little bit better, and he could have a chance. I mean, before we take a break, before we get to our great interview that you did with Perry Farrell from the Free Press, maybe you can look up the stats last year and maybe do
let's compare
a statistical analysis.
Yeah.
And I can do a poll too. But I also, after your talk with Perry Farrell, I want to also talk about two players that the Tigers are likely going to be counting upon to have comeback seasons. And I want to get your sense of who do you think will have a comeback season with these two players. So that'll be a tease for later on in the podcast.
And then we'll take a quick commercial break here as we have Perry Farrell from the Detroit Free Press joining us in just a minute here on the Tigers Talk, episode number 29 of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. Looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan quarterback John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and the very best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going online to TopCatTeamSales.com. Once again, the website for Top Cat Sales is TopCatTeamSales.com. Also, remember to follow Top Cat Sales on Twitter at Team Top Cat. And now with me from the Detroit Free Press is long-tenured sports writer Perry A. Farrell. Perry, what's going on today?
It's cold out, Vito. That's what's going on.
That is what's going on. I appreciate the time here, Perry. Now, really quick, as a side note to start off the convo, did you ask for the A to be placed in your byline because of Perry Farrell, the frontman for the alternative rock band Jane's Addiction? Is that the reason for the A in your byline?
No, that's why my Twitter is Farrell Perry, because his is Perry Farrell, and people get us mixed up all the time. I put the A in there because I've been putting the A in there ever since I was in college at Central Michigan.
That's where it started. Very good.
Yeah, that's where it started.
That. Very good. But I got to believe that guy's got nothing on you in terms of coolness still.
I wish I had a couple of his checks, though.
Well, yeah, some of his money, some of his wealth, and hey, I would like that myself. And let's get right into your career now and not waste any time here, Perry. According to your Free Press bio, you've worked at the paper since 1988, covering the Pistons during the Bad Boys era, the Lions during the Barry Sanders era, and the Tigers, which I love the most, with Sparky Anderson, Lou Whitaker, and Alan Trammell. With all that being said, Perry, what has been your favorite story to write since joining the Freep more than 25 years ago?
Oh, gosh, my favorite story ever? Wow, that's a tough one. I guess it would be Final Four, probably one-on-one with Grant Hill.
Interesting fella, huh?
Yeah, great guy. I met him his senior year at Duke, and then he got drafted by the Pistons, which was great. So that was one of my favorite stories. My book was probably the best career assignment I had to do because I got a phone call. They asked me to do a story on the Pistons, a book on the Pistons. It just so happened it came during the time when they were playing for the championship in '04, so it was a great timing situation because I got done with the book. They won the championship, and, it was probably one of my proudest efforts ever. So that's my favorite thing I did was write a book, and I think probably my favorite story. There's so many of them. I just have to jog my memory. But the Grant Hill was good, and then I did one on this 50-year look back at some of the greatest milers that were in the city in 1962. We did like a 50-year look back in 2012, and that was a really good story because I met some great people.
And then, Perry, your book is called Tales from the Detroit Pistons Locker Room. I have that here in front of me. And I wanted to ask, where can we buy that book if we wanted to?
Go on Amazon.
Easy as that.
Amazon.com, put it in, you can buy. I think it's like $15 now.
Hey, that's cost efficient, too. Well,
yeah, that one came out in 2014. We did like a 10-year look back. So that's been out 2 years. So I think it's on Amazon.com now.
Amazon it is. And Perry, with all that being said, let's talk about the Tigers a little bit. Now, I know you're a basketball guy more, but I've got to ask because this podcast is called Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company, what it was like for you reporting on the likes of Tram and Sweet Lou Whitaker during the times you got to cover the ball club.
Okay, first of all, Sparky was a big ACC basketball fan.
Was he?
He loved
Okay.
North Carolina, Duke, North Carolina State. Yeah, he was a big basketball fan. So Sparky, you go in his office and you be in there for 45 minutes, and you might talk about the team. Alan Trammell was one of the classiest guys I ever met. I had a good relationship with Chet Lemon, good relationship with Lou. But Sparky just, he was a guy that told it like it was, and if you couldn't handle it, then you were in trouble because he wasn't going to pull any punches. So it was a great time, Old Tiger Stadium during that time, and getting to meet Lou and Alan, Chet Lemon, just great locker room.
I would have loved to have covered those guys. I mean, the greatest double play tandem, Sweet Lou and Trammell, that is, in Major League Baseball history. The longest tenure, too, at that. And with that being said, those guys, great players, great defensively, great at the plate as well with the bats. Do they belong in the Hall of Fame, in your opinion, Perry?
It's a travesty that either one is not in there and now are in a position to be in there. That's ridiculous. Alan Trammell definitely should be in the Hall of Fame. I know Lou had some years where he was injured, but when they played together, there wasn't a better double play combination in baseball at that time. I think it's really a shame that one, if not both, aren't in the Hall of Fame because I think the numbers are competitive enough with guys in the Hall of Fame now where they should be in there, and that's just a joke.
And now to the topic of your book. One of the topics, main ones, the Bad Boy Pistons. You covered those guys. Great teams, back-to-back champions. And it means you witnessed this franchise during really its glory days. And you saw Isaiah, you saw Joe D, just to name a few of the big-time legends of those teams. But with all that being said, what was your favorite story, from those Bad Boy Pistons, or your favorite memory from covering those Pistons teams back in the day?
My favorite memory was just how clutch they were in key games and just the tough mindset that they all had. Watching them beat Chicago before Michael became His Highness, fighting every second in practice to be able to get on that floor and play. So it was just one of the most highly competitive teams you'd ever come across because if you didn't play well in practice, Chuck Daly would sit you. And let me say this, Chuck Daly is by far one of the greatest coaches to ever coach in the NBA and one of the nattily attired dressers ever in the league.
Big Daddy Rich, right? They called him that for a reason.
Daddy Rich. I mean, Chuck Daly was just a Hall of Fame person, Hall of Fame coach.
These Bad Boys teams that you covered, great players, like I said, and it means you witnessed the jersey retirement ceremonies of guys such as Vinny the Microwave Johnson, as well as one of the nastiest bad boys in the history of the Bad Boys, and Bill Laimbeer, plus Isaiah Thomas. Three good players, and two of them, in my opinion, Laimbeer and Thomas, are really great players from a historically great team. Now, Laimbeer and Thomas certainly deserve to see their jerseys raised up to the rafters. But with all that said, it brings me to my next question here. What do you think of all these guys from the franchise's 04 championship squad having their jerseys retired? The likes of Big Shot Billups, Big Ben Wallace, and now, coming up soon here, Richard Rip Hamilton.
Yeah, those three are the three that belong up there, and I think that's really should be about it because those were the leaders. Ben was the face of the franchise. Rip was one of the top mid-range shooters in the league, and Chauncey was their leader. So it should be those three. Some people brought up Tayshaun, but probably not. And I just think Rasheed didn't play here long enough. But those three should be up there along with Isaiah and Bill and Vinny. So I know I heard that they have more up there than the Lakers do. But, those guys belong up there because those guys were the staple of the championships.
Now, Perry, your favorite, back to the Bad Boys here, your favorite of the Bad Boys to cover, and how about who was the nastiest bad boy? Because I got to believe it was Bill Laimbeer.
Rick Mahorn, but,
Okay.
Rick Mahorn's one of my best friends. But Ricky, he told me that him and Charles, once he got left off the protective list and went to expansion, went to Minnesota, got traded to Philly, they sent Laimbeer a message during that game that, okay, we're going to beat you up. And that's when they had the big brawl at the Palace that year. Yeah, when him and Barkley went after Bill. So by far, he was my favorite during that era, and he was probably the toughest.
Moving on here, how about now the fact that, you've covered the Pistons, the Lions, Tigers over the years, and now you've gotten the privilege of covering prep sports, plus Detroit Titans men's basketball, along with myself for the Free Press. It means you've gotten the chance to see Birmingham see home product Paris Bass this year suit up for the Titans and average 17.7 points plus nearly 8 boards per game in his second campaign with Detroit. In your opinion, Perry, does Bass have what it takes to play in the NBA, though?
Well, I've gotten calls about him from the league, so obviously he does. I think he has to pick up some weight, and he has to work on his attitude because he gets into a funk sometimes. But as far as his skill set, he could probably play shooting guard, small forward, or in some occasions point guard. So he has the talent to do it. He's got to work on his mental game because he can be dominating at times when he comes ready to play. So, I mean, he's a great player.
And now, if you had to choose one player to start a team with from the Horizon League right now, would you choose Bass or someone else, such as standout Oakland University junior guard and the almost shoe-in, really the shoe-in right now, for Horizon League Player of the Year, in Detroit's own Kay Felder?
I will start my team with Kay Felder.
Simple as that. I mean, he's the best player in the league right now, obviously, too.
You know, he leads the nation in assists. He's third in the league in scoring. So if I would start my team, I would start with him and then fill in the blanks.
Perry, Detroit as a team right now sits at 13-12 and 7-7 in Horizon League play going into Tuesday night's contest on the road at first-year Horizon League foe, Northern Kentucky. What do you expect from the Titans the rest of the way this season, and could you see them doing any damage come March in the conference tournament held this year and for the first time at Joe Louis Arena?
It's all about their defense. If they can stop people because they're going to score enough points. They've been a disappointment, and I think they've underachieved. So if they can stop people and play consistently, they have a chance to get past the first round. And it's up to them. You know, they went through that funk. They lost like 3 in a row or something. They were below 500. I just think they have to concentrate more on the defensive end.
Perry, thank you for all the time today here on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. Hey, good luck to you the rest of the way covering the Detroit Titans and to everything else you do at the Free. Because really, you are that utility man there at the Free Press, in my opinion.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.
All right, I'll talk to you. You have a good one. And back now after that great segment with Mr. Perry Farrell from the Detroit Free Press. Very long-tenured sports writer from the Free. Good stuff from him. As I said before, when we introed it in the early part of the podcast, we talked about the Pistons, the Bad Boy Pistons, his book. Very good one you can find on Amazon.com. Talked a little bit about Sparky Anderson and the Tugs, Alan Trammell, Sweet Lou Whitaker, and who was the nastiest bad boy, and then some UDM, men's hoops about Paris Bass, specifically, and OU's best ball player, the best player in the Horizon League this year in Kay Felder. Not to be confused with Khalil Felder, as he went by Khalil last year.
Real quick reaction. Kay Felder or Denzel Valentine, best player in the state?
Ooh, very good question there. Denzel Valentine can do everything. He's bigger. And in the NBA, you know, if you play at the next level, it's about the height, the size, all that, and all the intangibles as a whole. So I think Denzel Valentine can do more as an all-around player than Kay Felder can as an all-around player. But you even probably know who Kay Felder is now, huh? He's received a ton of national attention at this point. Big name, great player, the best player in the Horizon League, by the way.
I saw what he did versus Michigan State at the Palace.
Tore them apart, man.
Woo.
But then he fouled out in OT, I believe it was.
That was, thank God, he fouled out.
Luckily for MSU. It was indeed. And, Doc, you had some breaking news, I believe, and if you wanted to share it from the Pistons, a trade that was just broken by Chris Broussard of ESPN.
Yeah, as we're recording this, there's talk now, which is weird because the Pistons don't play a game before the trade deadline, which was Thursday.
Yeah, they play on Friday, yep.
Yep, so as we're recording this now, the talks are that the Pistons are going to trade Ersan Ilyasova, Brandon Jennings to Orlando for Tobias Harris.
Who's a better player. That'd be a good trade. They don't need Jennings as much because they have Reggie Jackson now, so I would like that move for the Pistons. But, hey, this is not Pistons talk, huh, with Chirco and Company. And back to some Tigers news and notes, and Doc, to you for that very note. What do you have for me right now?
Yeah, I think that, you know, did you get a chance to check out the stats before regarding how Jordan Zimmerman stacked up maybe last year compared to Justin Verlander?
And you know what? It'll prove my point to be right once again. His FIP was higher. And if you look at it here from last year, even, you know, though Zimmerman, he pitched a lot more baseball. And if you want to compare it specifically, he had 33 games started. Verlander only 20 games started. So a lot less innings for JV. So a lesser toll, which might be a good thing, by the way, for Verlander. He only started those 20 games, 133 and a third innings pitched as well for JV for the Tigers last year. Might be a good sign because it might be a thing where it alleviates some stress that was put on his shoulder, on his arm in the past when he had to pitch all those innings and did and pitched as many as 251 innings dating back to 2011. The following year, 238 innings, and then in 2013, 218. and he even maxed out with 206 in 2014 for innings pitched. So a lot of innings pitched in full seasons there and you can date back as far as 09, 240 innings pitched. So 240 innings pitched in 09, and then his last time pitching 200 innings plus was 2014. Last year under that threshold, under the mark of 150 innings pitched as well for JV in a Tigers uni. So that might be a good thing, and less stress, like I said, on his arm last year. Maybe he's more healthy now this year, more ready to go from day one because of that as well, Doc. So I think that's a good thing. I think it's smart. You wanted to, use our segment that we've used now a lot here, Smart or Dumb. I think it's smart to say that JV even being hurt last year and pitching less innings is a good thing for the Tigers going into 2016. And like I said, really quick once again, reverting back to your point or the conversation that we had regarding Zimmerman and JV and comparing the two to one another based on their stats from last year. Fielding independent pitching-wise, JV's 3.49, Zimmerman's 3.75, and that was in a larger sample size and a lot more innings pitched. So maybe Zimmerman, over the course of 20 games started like JV, what he did for the Tigers in 20 games, maybe Zimmerman's 20 games started FIP was lower than what he finished with as well at the end of the season with that 3.75 mark. So in his defense, a larger sample size for Zimmerman. But still at this point, even though Verlander is older, but not a ton older than Jordan Zimmerman, Verlander is 32. Zimmerman right now is 29 years young. So not extremely old, but really Verlander isn't either. So Verlander still is a clear-cut number one for me. It would take a lot for Zimmerman to surpass JV as the number one at the top of the Tigers' rotation in 2016. And with that being said, you have a little poll question for myself and the fans that you wanted to throw out there. And Doc, take it away.
Yeah, so to end the podcast, I'm curious because, USA Today had one pressing question for every team in the league. Their question was whether Victor Martinez will bounce back or not. We've talked about it a little bit on Doc and Jock, which comes out every Thursday. We've talked about it here a little bit. If Victor Martinez emerges and plays a good season, then this Tigers team is going to have a lot of success. I think that he's an integral part. But a couple of question marks from the 2015 season, and arguably two guys that were disappointing that we counted on to have success. Bruce Rondon or Nick Castellanos. Who do you think has a stronger chance of having a breakout comeback season in 2016? Is it going to be Bruce Rondon, who's going to be looking to, shed a few pounds, keep his head in check, get his mental game in order, stop being lazy, and try not to get sent home by his boss this go around? Or Nick Castellanos, who, relatively speaking, compared to the hype, has been very underwhelming. Now, he's serviceable, but he is somebody that we're expecting to be a strong contributor to this team and to hit more and to do a lot more things. So, in my opinion, I would say that Bruce Rondon has a much stronger chance because of the tools that he has. It sounds like with Bruce Rondon, it's not so much a matter of talent. You see it. He throws a mean fastball. You can't teach 100 miles an hour. Even after an injury, he was coming back. He had that Tommy John situation, and he was hurt for a significant period of time there. Comes back, he still features good stuff. With him, it's mental. Sometimes when you get up to the big time, the big show, you start cashing those big checks, you start thinking that you don't have to put in as much work, when in reality, you got to put in more work. So maybe Brad Ausmus sending him home was the spark needed for him to get his head on straight. Although when you've seen the stuff that he was doing in the fall league, a little bit
going after batters like that, yep.
You still think that maybe there's some things between the head that he's got to work on. But I do believe that if he gets his mental game right, if he can put forth strong effort night in, night out to be the best Bruce Rondon that he could be, I think he's a strong candidate. He's going to be given a lot of chances to maintain and earn a spot in that bullpen.
Many more chances? The bullpen's much better. It is
two,
at the back end of the game.
100 miles an hour. That you look at.
But no command. Matt Anderson. Do you know who Matt Anderson is? Do you remember Matt Anderson?
I forgot who he was.
First rounder back. Okay.
Flame
closer.
out. I don't remember flame outs.
Throw that flamed out.
I don't remember flameouts, but I do remember Joel Zamaya, who
flamed out then, but he was good for a season. 06.
Joel Zamaya would get hurt like lifting pianos, moving,
and playing Guitar Hero.
You just get hurt like in the weirdest way possible. But you get chances, and he found a way to earn another contract with Minnesota before eventually injuries just wiped away his career. Guys like Rondon will get chances. If he gets cut or if he doesn't end up on the Tigers roster, he'll be sought after because of his ability to throw 100 miles an hour. That gets you in the door, like a 7-footer. You may be a bust, but you might get that second and third chance, whereas someone else like a Joe Nathan at this point in his career won't get any more chances.
Or like me. But anyways, yeah, Joe Nathan's aging. He's old. He's older than a lot of stuff, okay? So he's done. But yeah, to your conversation, to your point about Rondon, he might get his foot in the door with another ball club in the future because he has this great arm that can throw so hard, 100 miles per hour plus consistently. But you know what? His career ERA in 2 years at the Tigers, though, pitching games out of the pen, 4.68. That's not impressive, though, Doc. And I know Rondon's still young, but with all the trouble between his head, what's going on in his head mentally checking out, going after batters, losing his cool, not bringing the effort level at 100%. For me, I don't want anything to do with that. And especially when the Tigers went out in the offseason and improved their bullpen thoroughly or extensively, getting the likes of K-Rod for the 9th inning, Mark Lowe, Justin Wilson as setup men to square off or, to pitch alongside. You got Alex Wilson in the 7th inning, Drew Verhagen in the 7th inning. Guys like that in the 7th inning that can do it. Rondon would be a 6th inning, maybe a middle inning guy, middle of the game in the 6th inning, something like that right now. He is no longer that guy that's going to be relied upon as that late inning arm, and rightfully so because of all the trouble he has had on the field, but also off the field in his career up to this point. And also staying healthy is a big concern now going forward, even though he is only 25. So for me, your point is invalid. I'm going to disprove it right now because Castellanos should be the guy that has a big bounce-back season. And really, he wasn't as bad, nearly as horrible as Rondon was. Rondon was booted off the team, had to go away, get his act together. Has he really gotten it together? Like we said, in that fall/winter ball when he had his antics magnified. He went after the batter and being crazy like that. Nobody wants that craziness, Doc. Sorry. People want Castellanos and want his cool, even-keeled mentality/attitude. They want that kind of a ball player who has to improve defensively at third base, at the hot corner. Very difficult to play for a young guy and a guy who had to play then in left field. It was moved over there, so moved this way and that way, and now he can stabilize at third base position. And I think can be better than he was last year, Doc. And if anything can be used as an example or as evidence for why he should be better in 2016, it's his second half offensive numbers, Doc. And look at this. In the second half of last year, he hit 269, almost 270 for a guy starting as much as he did last year as a young guy, not horrible. 322 on base percentage, 478 slugging is the big number. And his OPS, 800. His OPS, on-base plus slugging, was 800 last year, Doc, in the second half of the season. That's nothing to sniff around about. So, for me, if he maintains something between what he did in the first half last year with the OPS, an OPS of 658 in the first half for Castellanos, if Casty can go in between that 658 and the 800 OPS that he produced and put up in the second half of last year for the Tigers, then I think his OPS could be 750 and maybe even slightly above for Castellanos in 2016. That would be a huge improvement, and that's why I think he is a guy to pick between him and Rondon for making a stride, making an improvement, and maybe even a huge one in 2016. I think Rondon is out of the question in so many words too, Doc. Your thoughts on what I just had to say about Castellanos?
No, I agree.
I think I'm right
listen,
here, Doc.
Maybe we can have our cake and eat it too for once. As you were talking, I was just looking out. I was just like, wow. You know what? We're really lucky recording in the studio with a window. We get to see nice realtors bring people into the door. And I was like, oh, wow, that realtor that walked by was pretty good looking. I was
nice looking people that walk by the office, too.
I did take advantage of the fact that recording in an office is kind of nice. It's not bad. It's not a bad gig here. But I agree. You know what? Why not for once? Let's just say Rondon and Castellanos have comeback seasons. Add to a team that has a lot of potential. Let's have a little bit of hope for once. Let's say Rondon and Castellanos can be, great teammates, can be guys that really take stock into their career and really reach their potential. Imagine Bruce Rondon being that effective, 7th, 8th inning guy that you can rely upon. Castellanos continuing to mash and get key hits in those clutch situations. And you add a Castellanos who could be someone that could add to this offensive firepower. Hey, man, what I really would like to see with Castellanos, improve on defense. Because
he needs that big time. You're right.
Oh, man, his play at third base was less than appealing in my opinion. And so improve on defense, be more consistent. Hey, now, I'm starting to get a little bit of hope. Maybe this Tiger team can just maybe click on all cylinders, and maybe we'll have a chance to have some great success. Why not?
Castellanos, as you were saying, too, was very subpar at third base, has been so far in his Major League Baseball career, playing the position. And he was really a laughingstock at times, making some errors, too many here and there. But in comparing the two and saying who's going to have the better season and make more of the stride going forward in their career, and specifically in 2016, it's Castellanos hand down, also because of the fact that he's the starting third baseman from day one. Rondon has no defined role as that late inning guy. He doesn't even have a defined role as a middle inning guy, as a 6th inning guy. Because you have Mark Lowe, like I said there. You have Justin Wilson there already in the 7th inning, the 8th inning, pitching for the Tigers out of the pen. So with that being said, Rondon might not even make the Major League Baseball club, the roster, the 25-man to start the season, by the way. And Castellanos has that defined role, like I said. He's going to be on the 25-man roster to start the year and as a starting third baseman. And remember, if he improves at the plate, Doc, too, hits like he did in the second half or close to that, well, he could put up some really good numbers in that slot where he's going to hit in. Because you have Justin Upton, if you remember right, everybody's talked about this now, the lineup alignment with Justin Upton being added. He'll hit number 2 more than likely. Cabby at number 3. Number 4, you'll have V-Mart as of right now. Probably should be JD and probably will be JD as the season goes along. But let's say as what we're projecting for right now for opening day. Number 4 is V-Mart. Number 5, JD. Number 6, probably Castellanos. So him hitting 6 behind the likes of those guys, all-star caliber hitters, well, he's going to put up, if he really hits like he did in the second half of last year, he could put up 20-plus home runs. And if he does that, what a solid that would be for the Tigers organization in 2016.
Getting excited. Pitchers and catchers report this week.
That's a reason to get excited. A guy like that improving, like you said, and we could eat our cake about all the negativity we've expressed about Rondon as well if he came out and did something close to his talent level. And Castellanos, if he lived up to the bill of being this former top prospect for the Tigers. If he can, we can eat our cake, or, we'll have to eat our words, right, about what we said about Castellanos in the past, maybe being that subpar defender and being that subpar guy at the plate. And I think there's more of the likelihood, Doc, we can say this right now too, where he turns around his career at the plate. It's much more likely than him turning around his career at third base defensively.
Great podcast.
Great stuff.
Great
as
podcast,
usual here, Doc. Thank you very much. And to Perry Farrell from the Detroit Free Press for sticking it out, dealing with all our antics, all our hijinks and hilarity today. Great stuff from him, long-tenured sports writer at the Detroit Free Press. And this is it now. Signing off here for episode number 29 of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Co. Episode number 30 drops next Wednesday on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Talk to you then.